And it's crazy right now to be a Knicks fan and dating in New York City because every single man was like, "Ooh, how should we celebrate?" And they were like, "I want to go down on you. I want you to sit on my face." And I'm like, "What are we doing, people, as a society? Why is that the first thing that people are saying to me? Like, I don't even know you." And I always say, I like to use my youthfulness like my white privilege to help other people. And that's the truth. Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Me IRL pod. I'm your host, Lauren Friedman, also known as Not Another Healing Asshole. And on this podcast, we help you your life in real life through the art and science of connection, nervous system literacy for all. And this is what I just want to start out with, and then we're going to dive into it future. But I recently got divorced in September of 25. I'd been in a very dysfunctional, sexless marriage for almost 2 decades, and it destroyed my life. And what actually was the problem was an underlying attachment wound. And that's something that we all suffer from. That's where all of our addictions come from, all of our self-abandonment, all of the ways we try to escape ourselves. So I just recently started dating again after divorce and after healing sex and love addiction or being in sex and love addiction. I don't call it recovery, but it is to some people. And one question that came to mind in the last few months before I started dating was, did you ever notice how people stopped talking about eating your tush after COVID? Something I noticed as I became more and more OCD, like a la Howie Mandel, like for real. And we're going to dive into that in a little bit. But as I mentioned, I did stop drinking. I realized my issue was sex and love. It's something that we all suffer from to some degree or another. And it's also a way we could change our lives by addressing that underlying issue and finding safety in ourselves and wholeness and the ability to communicate and have discernment and all the things that happen when you have the ability to live inside your body and allow that to dictate your actions. I've been, oh my God, it's so bad. This I took from away from a child in the summer of 23, I believe. And while I was looking for something like this to use here, I found this and I took it away because the child was torturing her parents with this. And I was like, I can't stand to see this go on any longer. And so I took it and I hid it. And the child eventually got over it and the parents knew. And I was like, I'll be the bad guy. I'm not worried, but you can't continue to be tortured with this. And it's funny when you think about sensory issues, which is something that I was having trouble with when I was in undiagnosed lifelong survival mode and adrenal fatigue before I was being treated properly. This noise, even in the summer of 23, I couldn't with my ears. It was so painful. And I never imagined that I would respond to a noise like that. But it's also an interesting way for me to understand how regulated or dysregulated my nervous system is by understanding, do I have light sensitivity? Do I have sound sensitivity? Am I getting overwhelmed in crowds? So these are things that like we weren't ever taught how to live in our bodies as humans, right? And these are things that unconsciously dictate every single one of our decisions and we don't even know it. Sometimes we may not even be aware that this type of sound is bothering us because there's so many other things going on. So I know it's been a few weeks since the last episode aired. That was right before, it was like the end of May. And I did record something in between and I was going to post it, but I was trying to avoid some extraneous legal exposure because as I've mentioned on other platforms and in other areas, my ex-husband of almost 20 years, his family was stealing from us in the family business. And then when I tried to stand up for myself, they came after me legally. That doesn't solve any problems, right? Ain't that America? But I was trying to avoid further legal exposure. And then I remembered that my ex-husband took on all legal claims in the divorce that I did pro se last summer. And that's not my problem anymore. It's not my problem to protect abusers. And it's not my problem to protect people that are committed to destroying my life for no reason, only because I exist and I let them. So I remembered my power. But what we are going to talk about is what is it like to date after divorce, but also date after divorce while being in sex and love addict recovery. Now, I haven't ever been to SLAW. I went to one SLAW meeting, Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous. And in April of 2023, when I realized that that was my issue and it was like so shameful and so heartbreaking. And then they added like another layer of shame to it. So I decided that wasn't for me, but I wanted to talk about it broadly because this is something nobody talks about. We think it's like a fake addiction. Actually, all addictions are kind of viewed as like fake, like, oh, if you just had more self control or if you were just stronger. And that's the thing. Like, I have the most amount of discipline of anybody I've ever met in my existence. Like, I am so self disciplined and so self motivated. That was never my issue. My issue was actually dysregulation and unprocessed complex trauma that was actually unconsciously deciding every single thing in my life. And I had no idea. And I could have left so many times. And it got to the point of obviously very dangerous for me. I lost my job 6 times after M&A and divestiture. I lost my whole family. My dad committed suicide. And like, I got really sick while I was hiding these people's crimes that lived inside me. And all their friends and family used to always ask me, they're like, what's going on? Why don't you guys have kids? What's really happening? Why didn't you ever change your name? And I was like, everything's great. And I used to put on a big old smile. And that's the thing, is that when we don't have the ability to speak our truth and we don't know how to process emotions or even have emotions, let ourselves have emotions, then it gets stuck in our body and we get really sick. And that's why the autoimmune diseases of the world, the cancers, the ADDs, the OCDs, dyslexia, all the things that make us feel shameful and sad and just destroy our lives from the inside out can be actually reversed through biohacking. I'm a biohacker. I've actually reversed chronic illness. I'm really proud of that. And I tell myself how proud I am of myself every single day, but I also let myself cry, which is something I never used to do. And that's the thing, we have to learn how to release from our bodies. Thank you so much for watching the On Me IRL pod. If you want to support the mission, the quickest way to do that is to hit the subscribe button. Also, what really helps algorithmically is to like, share, comment. If you have any thoughts, drop it in the comments below. I'm happy to respond to all of them. I will be responding personally. Also, if any of the a few of my favorite things, my affiliate partnerships, are interesting to you, you could find them all in the link above, including but not limited to Equip Protein, Built Bars, Slate's not on there yet because they don't have an affiliate program, but Recess, Routine, and Camuso Design, all things to help you stay sane, hydrated, and aligned in your power. Back to the regularly scheduled programming. So I started dating again, as I mentioned, and I was determined not to go on the apps because every time I've gone on the apps when my ex and I were separated over the years, like I went on in 2018, 2021, 2023, and now in 2026, only for like 1 month stints, right? Because I meet people organically all the time, but my life is really isolated right now. And, you know, one of the things that also I realized my ex-husband has no idea, like last week I called him to give him an update about something that I was doing with my business, as that directly impacts finances, right? And I was the breadwinner, I provided insurance, like they literally stole from me, and I have no family, and they knew that nobody was looking out for me. And this is what pure evil looks like. Like, I was running so far away from my family that I ran into like actually a more dysfunctional family and a family that's actually pure evil. And I deeply regret staying this long. But the thing is I met them when I thought I was a little fat girl with no family. That's how I looked at myself. Was I was a fat girl with no family, and they just looked like a perfect family. It looked perfect on the outside. 2 parents, 2 sets of grandparents, 3 kids, a dog. Like, they got to go on all these family vacations. They did all these things with their friends. I thought they were great people, and they're actually really not. And the longer I got to know them, the more my body was trying to speak to me. In fact, I started getting really bad debilitating migraines again that I started to have when I was 16, when my dad started to get really sick when I was in high school, and he just like never recovered. I started to get like really bad migraines again at about 6 months into dating my now ex-husband, and I stayed 20 years past that. So, and now I'm in this situation. And the thing is I could have left billions of times. And so one of the things that's always stuck in my head since I was a child, and this is what unconsciously dictated every single one of my decisioning, whether it was personal, professional, family, friends, was the paradox of my mom telling me that I was a genius. I was asking thought-provoking questions at a young age about adult songs. Every time you go away, you take a piece of me with you. And that also unintentionally shaped my nervous system for chaotic dysfunction. Like we'll talk about Only Music Can Save Us. But it shaped every relationship, whether it was friendship, family, personal, professional, any decisioning I made. And even if I was in therapy since I was 5, both my parents were therapists, and nobody understood the mind body connection, and nobody really understood how to get to the root cause of how we could actually affect change in our minds and bodies. Because traditional psychotherapy doesn't work. You can't logic your body into safety. And when we don't feel safe, we outsource safety to others. So I didn't feel safe in my life. I knew nobody was ever looking out for me. I raised my whole family. I raised my sibling, and nobody was ever looking out for me, but I was, right? So I didn't need anybody. And I didn't even consider that that was something that like other people saw in me. I didn't consider that people would take advantage of that, right? My ex-husband is a very kind man, but you know, a friend to all is a friend to none, and he is not a friend to himself. One of the mantras when I first started this journey that really, really helped me get through this time was people who can't show up for themselves can't show up for you. It used to destroy me when I would see everybody else's husband, boyfriend, fiance make concessions to make their lives work together better. And all I heard was, oh, it's me and my parents' business, me and my parents' business. My parents have to go away on vacation with all their friends. Oh, they have this big, they have a property at a gated yacht club, but they can't pay their son. So things have not been going well for a long time. Thingsargoingwell.com. And it's like, you know, it's facetious. And the thing is that things have not gone well for a really long time, but I didn't know how to listen to my body. So the one thing that stuck with me since I was a child was, you're a genius, right? But then the other thought that I was also told at the same time was that I was ashamed to the family. And because I was throwing up from eating at around 2 years old in front of their friends that didn't have children. And my mom was extra embarrassed about that. Like, and they were older parents anyway. Like for that time, they were in their 30s. My dad was 30 when I was born. My mom was a few years older. She also had shame around, right? So all this gets stuck in her body. She projects it onto me. She thinks that I am her. Like there's a lot of, it's really dysfunctional. And when we think about epigenetic trauma that lives in our genes and becomes pronounced through environmental factors over generations, this is how this all happens. So those two contradicting things lived in my head my whole life and affected every single decision. And what's also crazy is that I actually have a photographic and audiographic memory. Like I remember thoughts that I had like from around or under 2 years old, and places and things that people could never have told me. You know, like I remember these things. And I realize it's from being in a perennial state of hypervigilance from amygdala activation. And I spoke to Dr. Bessel from The Body Keeps the Score about this. And he told me that I had to live another 200 years to prove out that hypothesis. And I was like, I don't need to do that. I know that that's true because I've done a lot of research on my own, and I have some certificates in trauma, and I'm getting another certificate in executive leadership from a really amazing university. I'm really excited about that. So these are things that I'm trying to do so that I can bring a level of expertise to my consulting clients. I'm known as a problem solver. If you got a problem, I'll solve it. Check out the hook while Lauren revolves it. That's what I'm working with in high pressured and high performing industries like mine. My background is in advertising and emerging tech. And as I mentioned, I lost my job 6 times after M&A and divestiture, and then I was blamed for it. I was throwing up from eating at 2 years old and nobody knew why. And I was blamed for it. My ex-husband's family stole from us for the last 20 years in the family business. And then I was blamed for it. And so when you think about trauma, stress that overwhelms our ability to cope and or contradicts our worldview, right? This is pervasive across all facets of life. And I didn't understand that when I first started my trauma treatment in 2022. All I wanted to do is get my body to lose weight. First, I wanted to feel better. I literally felt like my brain was scrambled. It was so terrifying. I didn't even know I had anxiety because everybody around me had the most amount of anxiety my entire existence. Like I was always managing everyone else's anxiety that I didn't even know I had anxiety until I couldn't leave my apartment in the summer of 21. And it was terrifying, and it was destabilizing, and it was debilitating, and it was disorienting, and it was all the things. Like I literally felt like I was never going to get better. I felt like the Tin Man. Like I was in adrenal fatigue, which isn't even like a medically recognized diagnosis, but it's very real. And at one point they thought I had a tumor in my adrenal gland. And when I didn't, they're like, just get to a better BMI. And it's all interrelated. So one of the reasons I'm on this journey is so that other people don't fall into these types of cycles of dysfunction, and you don't blame yourself. You know that there's a way out. If someone had said to me, hey, traditional psychotherapy doesn't work, but this does, I would have done it in a second. I was doing 14 hours a week of CrossFit at one point, and I still was almost 300 pounds. Do you know how crazy that made me? That's why I stopped drinking. I didn't stop drinking because I needed to stop drinking, because I did need to stop drinking. And drinking was 100% not doing anything good for my life. I always say that I stopped drinking and I did society a favor. And that's the truth. And the thing is like my drinking actually wasn't the issue, because what I realized that I still could make those really, really, really bad decisions sober. I was like, okay, I have a problem. Let me get some help. And it's a really shameful thing. That's why I call it like, let that wrong button. Let that go, the weight of shame. And that's the truth. Like I used to protect myself with items, with things, with clothing, with being able to provide for myself, with literally self-abandonment is when you can't deal with what's going on in your life and you try to look for external safety. And I didn't know that's what that was. I had no idea that my survival as a superpower, survival mode as a superpower, my survival was actually me seeking safety. So I was prolific in my career and in my life. Like I've had a perfect on paper life, but it actually was always coming apart at the seams. And I couldn't understand why. I also couldn't understand why every time I would lose over 100 pounds, my body would gain it back. My parents are old hippies. I ate like literally clean since I was born. My mom made her own baby food. She worked full time. She believed in glorious dynam. My dad was worried about red dye in the 70s. Like that's what my mom thought love was, which it's not. And that also, skewed her ability to be a protective parent for me and see what was actually happening, in my marriage with my ex-in-laws and what was happening, because she didn't know what love was because she didn't have any love for herself. And her mom didn't have any love for herself. Her mom escaped the Holocaust. And within 5 years, came here, was beaten up by her husband, got divorced in the 50s, and then beat the out of my mom. And my mom thought, okay, cool. I never beat my girls. I have a sister. She was my best friend. We also don't have the ability to ever speak to each other anymore because of this dysfunction. And it's really sad. But from people not being able to speak their truth, and they live in shame, and they can't have hard conversations because they're not regulated enough to do so. And they never were taught how to process emotions. So other people's emotions feel extraordinarily overwhelming to them, right? And so these cycles go on in families until someone like me is a cycle breaker and breaks it. And I not only broke my generational trauma, but I also am a cycle breaker in my ex-husband's family, because no one there has ever spoken about what's going on. Just because you've never been diagnosed with anything doesn't mean you're not effing crazy. It's just the truth. Like his uncle was schizophrenic and homeless by choice, and his dad decided to steal from us in the business and then come after me legally. Solve the problem, bro. I'm not your problem. You're your own problem. So the thing is when we have the ability to have awareness, connection, acceptance, self-love, release the shame. I always say like reframe pain, release shame, and then reclaim your power. That's the truth. That's what you do. And I remember the moment that I like first learned how to release shame. I had like an aha moment at my trauma retreat in 2022, which I was only there so my body would lose weight. I gained weight on the Ozempics of the world, even though I lost over 100 pounds multiple times naturally through diet and exercise. It made me loca en la cabeza. You know what I mean? But it literally made me crazy. And I couldn't understand why my body kept gaining weight. And I was working with, a bodywork therapist, and she kept saying like about protecting yourself. And I didn't know what that meant. I was like, I don't understand what that means. And now I do. And when we protect ourselves by outsourcing safety. We protect ourselves by physically putting up barriers against the world. Like I lost my sex drive for a long time, which actually felt like almost great for a while, because I was like, great. I don't feel anything. I feel numb inside. I mean, it was a terrifying way to live. But also, by the way, at work, I was like hired at one of the biggest tech companies in the world. And at the time, my manager at the time hired me and another gentleman. And he just like kept loving the fact that he hired us both at the same time. He's like, I love when I hire people at the same time, like you guys, like so-and-so, you're so calm and chill. And Lauren, you have so much energy. Woo! And I was like, literally felt dead inside. I remember being like, you think this is energy? And I had to drive to Maryland that night because one of my best friends, her mom had just died, and I wasn't able to get to the funeral earlier in the week because it was my first day, and I still wasn't being treated for all of this. So my brain was scrambled, and I wasn't on my thyroid medicine yet because I hadn't been treated yet. And this is September of 21, and I just remember thinking in that moment, like, oh my God, if he actually like saw me with energy. Like at the time, I literally felt dead inside. I felt like the Tin Man. And so when we think about all the things we've overcome and how we overcome them, and what we go through and what we put our bodies and minds through, it all comes down to safety. And do we feel safe? Do we feel safe in our lives, in our body, in our mind? And the thing is like, arguably, I've never felt safe in my entire existence, but I've had to find safety because otherwise I never would have been able to lose all this weight. I never would be able to have my nervous system regulated or have the ability to regulate it. And the thing is, it's not about being perfect all the time. It's not about being calm. It's about knowing how to actually go from a dysregulated state to a regulated state and back and forth. It's literally, it's a beautiful thing. It's about being agile, like the ability to traverse dysregulation and regulation and go back and forth, because we're not meant to be static in society. We're not meant to be static as humans. We're meant to be always be moving, be changing. And that's like the vagus nerve. The word vagile comes from that, or maybe it's vagile. I don't know. Maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong, but the vagus nerve means to wander. And when you could actually address your stress at a somatic level, meaning in your body, and hit your vagus nerve, which is what we do with the Camuso shift and all the other Camuso tools, the Camuso flex breather, which if you come to one of my events, you'll get those for free to try. And also a lot of sampling of all my favorite things. So when I was updating my ex-husband about the business update last week, he was like, oh, you should ask so-and-so. And I was like, so-and-so doesn't talk to me anymore. I was like, I don't think you understand how hard it is to try to scale a business while you're trying to get out of lifelong survival mode, while you're unemployed, while you're trying to scale a startup, while you're doing your own divorce and being attacked legally, while you're literally being isolated. Like anybody that used to support me really doesn't anymore. And he was like, oh, the fact that like I have to depend on him right now for finances is a nightmare. That's how I got myself into the situation, because I couldn't continue to fight with him about why he needed to make money, a livable wage, why he needed to make a livable wage in the state of New York for the last 20 years working for his father 6 days a week. I couldn't do that. And to the point where like I was having flashbacks and wetting the bed, and I still was interviewing just so I didn't have to fight with his mother. And I still ended up in this situation. And I'm going to show you how I'm getting out of it. And one of the ways is through speaking my truth, and also the consulting that I'm doing and the workshops and my partnerships. So if you want to help me, let's help each other, right? Help me help you. But the thing is that I started dating last week because I realized, I was like, okay, I meet people organically. I haven't been meeting like the right people organically recently. I had the breakthrough of magnum proportions a few weeks ago, or like basically a month ago at this point. And it also came around my dad's suicide date, and I have a lot of things that happened in the month of May. So it took me a while to be able to formulate that and also release and just like even process, right? Like we need time to process. We can't just like work like workhorses. Like I used to think I was a robot. Like people were like, you're the ice queen, you're a robot. I was a machine. I only knew how to work. I didn't know how to rest. Even my doctor, one of the first things she said to me, she was like, you only know how to kill yourself. She's like, you don't know how to stop. So I had to learn how to human at almost 40. And if I can do it, anybody can. And you could literally see how well I'm doing by how well do I stand up straight. Do I have the ability to pace my cadence in a way that isn't overwhelming for the party across from me? Last week I met with a man and he was like, oh, you're coachable. And I was like, I'm so coachable. I'm like literally every doctor's like favorite patient, because I will listen to you to a T, because my brain retains everything. There's no reason for me not to. I want help on this planet. I've literally lived on this planet for 43 years and had zero help. In fact, I've had people working against me, and that was pervasive across my entire existence. My mom was my first abuser. And most people would think, oh, like your dad committed suicide, and you have daddy issues, but that's not the case. It's actually mommy issues. She was my first abuser. And it was also though how I realized my sex and love addiction, and people telling me to do things and then getting angry when I do them. Like it's really dysfunctional, and I have lots of things to showcase this. But what's really cool is that I have been working on my sex and love issues over the last 3 years plus, through the power of neuroplasticity, the power to rebuild new neural pathways through intentional practice over time. It does not happen overnight. And I was able to actually get back on the dating market with a healthy, renewed sense of self. I'm not the fat girl with no family. I'm not the fat girl that doesn't have a job. I'm not the fat girl in a sexless marriage. I'm not anybody except for me. I come whole. And, while my life is certainly, it's not ideal to be dating when I'm trying to scale a business and I'm under financial duress and, I feel really isolated. I also feel like the most powerful I've ever felt in my life because I'm speaking my truth. I'm not living in shame. I'm not begging people. I'm not chasing. I see things with clarity. I'm not getting myself into those same situations. Like the other night, I re-downloaded Tinder on Friday night, and it was like right before game 5 of the Knicks, if we want to talk about dates. And it's crazy right now to be a Knicks fan and dating in New York City because every single man was like, "Ooh, how should we celebrate?" And they were like, "I want to go down on you. Or I want you to sit on my face." And I'm like, what are we doing, people, as a society? Why is that the first thing that people are saying to me? Like, I don't even know you. I downloaded it on Friday night, re-downloaded it for, I was off and on over the course of the years when my ex and I were separated and I would meet people and I just wanted to diversify. I never was on apps. He and I met January 2006. So like I never really was on apps. I didn't know like how crazy it was. So in 2018, I definitely got an awakening. And then when I went back on in 2021, I hated it. And I went and again, these are like 1 month stints at a time. But the other night I went back on, I was like, you know what? And I wasn't looking for a one night stand. I wasn't looking for I just want some healthy engagement. That's all I want. So I went on there and I actually met a guy that lived down my street. He was nice. We went out for drinks. I don't drink. I had 2 club sodas. He had whatever. He barely drank. And it was fine. Like we were just chilling. He's a workaholic and I get it. I also was a workaholic, which is, that was, if we want to think about addictions, of all of my addictions, work and sex and like relational feeling responsible for people, those have been the hardest addictions to break. The drinking has been so easy, and I vacillated with it for many years. I've stopped drinking off and on. I've been drinking recess for since 2020, and I was drinking another CBD full spectrum drink for many years before that. So I am on a segmentide that actually helps with breaking addictions and actually can help with alcohol addiction. So people actually microdose that. But you could also binge through it as you can anything else. Your body won't respond to it if your receptors aren't able to actually be accessed. And I learned that firsthand too. So there's not a panacea, but the only panacea is nervous system literacy. Because when you have the ability to know what's happening inside your body, you can allow that to inform every single decision in your existence. And your body has an infinite amount of wisdom, and it's sacred, truly. And if I knew how to listen to my body as a child, I wouldn't have gotten myself into these situations. But my nervous system wounds were programmed for abuse, and it was programmed for me to end up in these situations. But I'm also getting myself out of it. So it's hard to be a cycle breaker. I'm not pretending that it isn't. But I ended up starting to date. So I went out with this guy. We were just chatting. It was fine. I didn't really feel a strong attraction. He lived really close by. So I was like, cool. Do I even want to hang out with him again? I didn't even know. But he went to kiss me on the lips, as we were leaving, and not even a French kiss, but just a kiss. And I was like, ah. So I was like, okay, bye. And then the next day I went out with somebody, and that was the day of game 5. And we were in the city. And we were going to go to one bar, but apparently it had a watch party, which I was like, I'm all about the watch party. But this guy actually was trying to have a date. He was actually trying to have conversation, and that the watch parties weren't conducive for that. So we ended up getting there, and it was really annoying to get around the city on Saturday. Let me just tell you, more annoying than usual. And I live really close by, but I had to go all the way to the other side of the city. And by the time we got there, I was just thinking, when we were communicating, I want to be I don't even drink. Why are we going to this cocktail bar? But I didn't say that because I decided that not to talk about my sobriety publicly on these apps, because there's no nuance, right? I can't be I stopped drinking if I smoke pot, but I can sit in a bar. I don't have a problem with it. I used to sit in bars and think about sex and love and intimacy and kissing, and that's what was going through my head. The drinks were not my problem. And while I do have that the medicine that helps me break addictions, it actually, like, I'd been doing this for years before this because I knew I had to stop drinking at some point. I had a mentor that I used to travel with who isn't even publicly sober, but he taught me a lot. And he actually was the person that made me realize when I started this journey, because he said to me a long time ago when I used to drag him to different dispensaries across the country, he'd be like, if there was designer pot when I was getting sober, I would do that and stop drinking. It would have been so much chiller for me. But like, pot used to also give people panic attacks and make people feel more anxious, right? But if you know the kind that works for you, like indica is like the kind for me. So when you think about the level of stress that I could be under, right? Indica is normally like in the sheets. What is it? Sativa in the streets and indica in the sheets. I'm indica all day, every day. Like it evens me out, but not for everybody, right? And so what works for me doesn't work for everybody else. But the cool thing is that there's all different ways to regulate your nervous system. You don't even need pot. Like I use this Camuso shift instead of pot because it helps me breathe. That's what pot does. It literally helps you have a long exhale. It literally mimics that. So I feel really grateful for finding this and for having this partnership. They're just my favorite company, honestly. So if you are going to buy anything, purchase from Camuso. They're like family owned. They're just amazing. I feel really grateful to be an affiliate partner of theirs, and also to find them at my trauma retreat in 2022. This is what taught me how to breathe for the first time. And I went to a yin yoga class on Sunday night, and I had stopped going for the last few months. And it's great because it's like kind of like going to meetings, like AA meetings. Like the guy the night before ended up being an AA guy, and he doesn't even smoke pot. He's like truly sober. Like I'm not considered sober in the sobriety communities, right? I'm sober from alcohol, but I still use other substances, which are limited, but it's not true sobriety, right? Like I would be laughed out of any sober environment. But he was telling me how he hadn't been to a meeting in X amount of time, but he knows he could always go back to it. And that's the beauty of like finding your own flow in your own healing journey. Like there's no healed. There's no healed. It's always be healing, like always be closing, always be healing. And there's always new things to work on yourself and ways to better yourself and just things to notice. It's about curiosity and not judgment and not shame, but just taking an inventory of what's happening in your mind, body to that stimuli. We talked about last week how triggers are just stimuli, taking away the shame, reframing it. And these are things I'm going to continue to just really hone in on each episode so that, because this is meant to be educational in a fun way. As I mentioned, it's a little Call Her Daddy meets The Daily Show meets PBS Sesame Street meets Break Out Into a Song. Sound of Music meets the dirtiest, raunchiest comedian you're ever going to meet. And that's me, the Lauren Friedman experience. I'm from chaos, like the 311 song. But it didn't bring me clarity, as it turns out. I used to think from chaos comes clarity. It's from calmness. And calmness is a beautiful thing. I didn't know I could ever feel calm. I never knew I could feel peace, especially being like in my actual worst nightmare. Like I've been living in my worst nightmare on this planet, in this universe that I had premonitions of, and I couldn't stop it. But I also know that there's a better future ahead for me and for you, because I've seen visions of that too. So we're going to talk about all those things. But I started dating, and it was the weekend of the Knicks, Game 5. So I was in the city, and we met at this bar, and I get there finally, and it was very close to where his apartment was. So I was like, okay, I understand like why you did this. Like I'm not dumb, right? Like I know like when a man schedules a date like right by his apartment, his goal is to go back to his apartment, right? And so I got there and I was like, I don't even drink. And he's like, neither do I. So he's like, he asked the bartender, do they have any mocktails? And she said no. And I was like, I'm good. I would just drink. The only mocktail I really drink is this, honestly. Like it's under 30 calories. Most of the time it's 20 or 25. And it's delicious and it's good. And I just don't want to waste my calories on mocktails or money at this point because I've had to learn how to be fiscally responsible in myriad ways. But I was like, nah, I'll just have a club soda with lime. I love that. That's like perfect for me. Like if I had my druthers, I would have brought my water bottle, which I don't even carry this anymore because it broke. And this is like a replacement from the OG water bottle. But this one actually like snagged my skin in Whole Foods recently. So I was like, we're just going to leave it here. So anyway, so he and I get there and we start talking sobriety. And it's interesting because like I don't often meet people that are sober, period. And when I do, I'm like, oh, that's so interesting. Lots of people don't like drinking anymore. It's like chic to be sober curious. I'm always ahead of the trends, right? Like I had a big ass when big asses were in style. Now my tush is little. Big asses don't seem to be in style anymore. What do people do with all of their implants? Asking for a friend, just curious. These are just thoughts I have. Also, why are people still trying to wank off on these dating sites instead of just meeting people in real life? Stop wasting people's time. It's so ridiculous. So these are things I've learned now over time through experience that I don't involve myself in anymore. And you can have like mutually respectful engagement without hurting people, but also say like, hey, I don't want to be a party of this. And those are things I've learned, through my experience as well. So he and I were chatting and I was talking to him about sobriety and like what I've been doing. And like the thing is like most addictions, you don't try to reincorporate it back into your life. Like if you think about drugs, alcohol, eating, like you still have to reincorporate that into your life. Work, there's no 12-step program for work. There's no 12-step program for being too busy. There's no 12-step program for taking too many trips. And that's not for everybody. Like the 12-step programs just aren't for me. I'm not a joiner, apparently, as someone as a wise woman said to me a few summers ago. I was like, oh, I never thought of myself like that. And I understand why now through the lens of trauma. But also I don't want to be like, I don't like to follow things to a T. I like to listen to my body. Even before I knew how to be in my body, I was actually doing A/B tests with food in 2013. I A/B test my whole life. I'm very scientific. I believe in the scientific method. My background's in STEM, so it translates very well to this area of the ecosystem that I'm spending my time in. Because when you think about neural pathways and STEM, they're all interrelated. Our brain is the original AI. It's so much more powerful than AI. We train AI, not the other way around. So let's just remember that too as a society. But I started talking to him about sobriety and how, generally you're not trying to reincorporate those addictions back into your life. You try to have them blockaded off. And I've had to like actually learn how to reincorporate sex and love back into my life, whether it's with friendships. I don't have any family left to do that with. There's also Al-Anon, which he made a good point. He was like, Al-Anon is about the other people, not about you. And I was like, exactly. Traditional psychotherapy is like control your reaction because you can't control other people. I spent decades of my life with that central thesis. And that wasn't the problem. It wasn't how I can control my reaction. It was how do I get this out of my body and learn how to listen to my body so I can get out of this situation. So I got the out of this situation. You know what I mean? So these are all things that, society needs to learn as a society. We've only been a country for 250 years. Capitalism is only 400 years old. And we just are not as advanced as we thought we were. Like most people don't realize that this country's only been like civilized for like the last 50 plus years or 70 plus years, like we're really not as far along as we think we are. So when we think about changes in psychotherapy and trauma and just reframing everything, it's just a scientific method. We're learning more as a society every day. And nervous system literacy is really a panacea for society. And I know that to be true because when you have the ability to actually have calmness and clarity and discernment and agency, your whole world changes. I was able to trust myself again, to have romantic engagements with men in ways that I felt empowered. I could speak my truth. I'm not living in shame. I'm not going to just, have sex with anybody. I'm not desperate. I can actually have honest conversations. So the man, and I've always been authentic to a fault and loyal to a fault, but I never was aligned with myself because I couldn't speak my truth outwardly. And I would get stuck in these same cycles of dysfunction because I thought there was no other way out. And there is. So I was sitting across from this guy and we were chatting about sobriety. And I was like, yeah, like there's nothing else that you try to reincorporate back into your life in a healthy way that's this foundational to your existence besides sex. He was really cool. He really understood it. But it was just so funny because I had met him that night and I had no idea that he was sober. He didn't know that I was sober. And we ended up going back to his apartment for a little bit, just like it was after the Knicks game. The city was crazy. It was a really cool time to be in New York, outside the scope of every man using it as an excuse to want to have like random sex. You know what I mean? It's just not appealing to me anymore. Like, I don't even want to share a joint with you. Like, did you know, I learned this from an attorney that I was working with, that you can actually catch cavities from somebody. So like children that have their grandparents kiss them on the lips, which I was never allowed to do. My mom was like a germaphobe. I wasn't even allowed to pick my nose. I had to like use a tissue. These are all things that have served me very well, right? As an adult, and like everything that was cool now was like the most uncool back then, but now I'm cool. Just kidding. But like for real, like the things that were really, really like, we didn't have a microwave until I was like 12. We didn't have a TV that had a remote until I was above 10. We didn't have MTV till I was like in high school. Like my parents were like serious, like they believed in the power of education, of altruism, and also they worked their off every single day and they had really good values. They just were really unhealed and it wasn't their fault, but I was able to break the cycle and I was able to actually find safety in my body and healthier engagements with minimally myself and other people. And so this guy and I ended up going back to his apartment and I was like, I really didn't want to hook up with him. But like we were sitting on a sofa and then uh, I was like, I have to leave by X time. And he's like, well, I'll just get you a car home. And I was like, it's good. So we ended up making out a little because he was like, I'm going to kiss you. I was like, fine. You know what? I can make out fine. And I was like, this is all I want to do. And then I realized like while we were doing that, like I started to become like hyper vigilant as he started like just like touching me other places because I was like, don't touch there, don't touch there. And I noticed like I would like hold my breath and I'm like, oh, like these are things that your body is bracing for, right? Like when you don't feel safe. And it wasn't that he wasn't respectful, but he, people like to wander, people like to enjoy the experience. I get it. I just wasn't feeling it as much, but he was a nice guy. We had a good time. I'm not trying to make out with like every guy I've ever met. Like I really don't want to do that. I used to want to just every guy I've ever met. And now I don't even want to make out with them. Like that's the power of neuroplasticity. But how do you know if you have a vibe with someone if you don't make out with them, right? And he was cool. We had a good night. So I was like, fine. It was good to have a good make out. But it also was cool to say no. And that was really cool. So at one point, like I was wearing a bodysuit and it was pretty easy to pull down, right? And at one point he was like on top of me and he was like, I want to go down on you. And I was like, I really don't want to do that tonight or something. And he was respectful of that. Let's just like make out. And I said that from the beginning and I said it again. And then like he would touch like another part on me and I would like brace. And I caught myself doing that. So I think that's number one, that's progress, right? But if you could be aware enough to know when you're bracing, whether it's in an interpersonal relationship, whether it's in a professional relationship, whether it's even just with yourself, right? I used to hold my breath and not know it. I had to learn how to breathe. I had to learn how to slow down my cadence. And when you have high pressured speech, it's often because you felt unsafe and you have to get the words out right away. You were in a volatile environment. And I did. I grew up in a volatile environment that I had to make my point quickly or else who knew what was going to happen. And also I have a lot to say. So I know like attention span is really short. Like I was doing attention metrics in my previous career and I've even done it now as a solopreneur across platforms. People don't have a long attention span. So and I talked to Tim Fullerton about this a few weeks ago on the Trauma Translator Live episode that you could find on here too. But like, how do you get your point across in short attention spans? You speak quickly. But the thing is that when you have the ability to slow down your cadence, to take a breath, you can actually have that clarity, that discernment, that agency. And the agency is a powerful thing that doesn't keep us trapped because you could have clarity and discernment, but until you have agency, meaning you feel like you're in control of your life and your decisioning, you could still be in the worst situations. Like I'm not in a great situation, but I have agency now and I don't feel trapped. I know that I have power and so do you. And I'm going to teach you how to do that. And it's through nervous system literacy. I was with this guy and we ended up making out for a little bit. And then at one point, like we were making out for a while and he was like, I want to go down on you. And like, I was like, I don't want to do that tonight. And I was so proud of myself for saying that. And then, a past iteration of myself, I would have said, maybe next time we'll do something else. I would have like future planned or tried to make it better or even given more information that I needed to give. I could have contextualized it. Like I had reasons too that I didn't want to do that night for a lot of reasons outside the scope of I wasn't feeling it, but I didn't need to do any of that. I just stated my truth and I let it be. And then I was like, how am I going to end this? Like how are we going to stop making out? And I was able to do that fine. I left. It was great. He was like, let me know when you get home. I did. He was very polite. It was really nice. And the thing is that then when I got home, it took me forever to get home, first of all. It was after game 5. And every guy, whether it was in person or on the apps, was like, I want you to sit on my face. How should we celebrate the Knicks game? Woo, Knicks. Carl Anthony Towns was on Seth Meyers the other night and he talked about how this championship was so much bigger than them. It was healing for the city. He was like, for Ewing, for all the players that didn't actually ever get to celebrate this in 53 years. And it's kind of like healing generational trauma. You actually heal like 7 generations behind you. When I got divorced last year, I'm the first woman in my family. First of all, I'm the first woman in my family to ever lift a barbell. I'm the first woman in my family to actually ever have my own agency to get out of a dysfunctional situation and stand up for myself in a way that actually is going to garner results. I'm the first woman in my family that wasn't stuck in these terrible things because I had kids. I actively chose not to have children because I refused to bring children into dysfunction. And that's the one thing about being in lifelong undiagnosed survival mode. I thought like a 5-year-old my whole life. So every time my ex and I would fight, my brain would just go back to my parents fighting. And I was like, I'm not going to do this to a child because it was so damaging. And my mom also fought like that with her mom. And the last time I saw my mom in person, which I didn't know was going to be the last time. It was 6 weeks before she dropped dead suddenly. It was at Thanksgiving in 2018. I literally ended it with, you go yourself. And with my dad, he said, you. The F word was part of both of my parents' last words to me in person, unknowingly. We didn't know these were going to be our last words in person, either of us. But my mom scared me as a child, and her engagement with her mom, my grandmother, scared me so much that I didn't want to bring children into dysfunction. And why was my marriage dysfunctional? Well, mainly because my ex-husband's family was trying to divide and conquer. They knew that their son didn't give a about anyone but them, not even himself. So it was really easy to manipulate him and say, your wife isn't the priority, we're the priority. This is what emotional abuse looks like in dysfunctional families. And you could look perfect on paper, but this is what emotional abuse is when you try to triangulate. Like I saw them do it with their children too. And it's not new, right? This is a method of abuse. It's divide and conquer. It's isolationism, right? Like that's what's happening from a global standpoint, a macro standpoint with this country, right? I always say that my ex-husband's father is just like Donald Trump, but not as smart. And Donald Trump is not smart, but at least he's a little bit smarter. This guy's just a schmuck, and they messed with the wrong former fat girl because I'm not going to take this idly anymore. I'm not going to protect the abusers. But I am, when I'm re-engaging with people again, I'm also not going to live in shame. I'm not going to live in their shame. I'm not carrying it. It's not my shame to carry. I don't have the shame anymore. I worked through all my things. Was it great that my ex-husband and I had such a dysfunctional relationship that I cheated on him? No. But guess what? I told him I was going to cheat on him if he didn't. And that went on for years. And I had no intention of doing that. But we never had sex. So what do you do when your needs aren't met? And I didn't know truly the depth of what my addiction was, what self-abandonment was. I just knew that I wanted to have intimacy. And I thought that I was doing something good for myself, but I actually was exacerbating the entire crux of what was going wrong in my life, which was an attachment wound. And it wasn't until I addressed my attachment wound that I was able to get divorced finally, because I didn't feel codependent. I didn't outsource my safety to anybody. My ex I saw this on Instagram today or YouTube, I don't know. And it was like, oh, you're leaving me? I'll go with you. And that's like what he was like to me. He's like, oh, if you leave me, I'm going to come with you. That's codependency and trauma bonding in complex trauma environments. And the thing is he's a great guy, but we should never have been put in this situation. And it's because people don't have the ability to communicate. I don't like using the word narcissist, right? But narcissists are just people who have never healed their own wounds and they're malignant, right? Whereas I have the opposite. I'm an empath, right? I feel everything. I've been responsible for everybody. I would never do that to my family member. I would never do any of the things that they did to me to them. This is not new. When we think about sex and love addiction and trying to get back to some type of healthy engagement post-divorce, the only way out is through, and it's through nervous system literacy. And I really think, I was celibate for 2.5 years. I did 1 month of dating in May of 25, and I was like, I don't want to date anymore. I want to just focus on scaling my business and finding stability in my life and getting divorced. I didn't need the distractions. And I feel so grateful because when I was ready, my body knew it. I was ready. I had a great experience. And that also allowed me to feel more safe and comfortable in engaging with other men, in a healthy way, because I've already done it once. And that's the thing about nervous system literacy is if you don't know what a baseline is, how do you get back there? And I never felt safe before. So I didn't know what safety felt like. But once I felt it for the first time in August of 22 at my 6-day trauma workshop, I was like, oh my gosh, I never want to not feel this again. And obviously, like you have to, there's always going to be disruptions. You're going to feel anger and rage. And I used to think my rage made me powerful. I have lots of stories around that. I was hell bent on keeping my rage. But the thing is that the rage was actually making me fat and miserable and sick. And when I was able to release it and surrender to the unknown, it's been a little bit easier. It's hard. Like I still have emotions. You still have emotions. You just have to be able to allow them to run through you and to be processed and to release them. And when we do that, we have much healthier engagements with ourselves and others. But when we don't, we get stuck in those same cycles of survival. So I went out with a guy on Friday night, on Saturday night. And then Saturday night when I got home, this other guy was messaging me, and he was the most ridiculous of all of them, because he was like, first he was like, oh, you just left the city? And it was like 2 a.m. or after 2 a.m. And I was like, yeah, I got home like 20 minutes ago. And maybe it was like close to 3 at this point. And he like wanted to just come by my apartment. He was like, oh, I'll just like come to your apartment and eat you out on demand. And I was like, I don't want that. Like, I don't find that to be attractive. Like, first of all, like there's nothing grosser than thinking about every single person you meet is going to lick your rhymes with the cat or kittens, 5 little letters that I'm missing. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, we're like, what is going on in our society? Like, I make the joke that like, people stopped talking about eating ass since the pandemic, but every single guy that I meet wants to go down on me. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't even want to kiss you. I barely want to shake your hand sometimes. And I'm not talking about men I'm dating. I'm talking about like people in general. Like the more sober I get, the more clarity I have, the older I get, and the more healing I feel, the less I want other people's disgustingness in my life. And the funny thing is that you can catch cavities from kissing people, and it's like very real. Bacteria just lives. And I was like, I don't want to kiss every person I've ever met in my life either. And it's very funny coming from someone who used to just have wild, crazy segs all the time, like all these crazy stories. And now I'm much more discerning. I have much more agency, but I also am living in my truth. And I was just like, guys, what's going on? So that was Saturday night into Sunday. And then Sunday, there was another guy that I was talking to that lived locally. And he was like, so how shall we celebrate the Knicks win or something? And I was like, you tell me. I can only imagine. He's like, well, it's very forward. And I was like, cool. Okay. Please share. And he was like, you sitting on 1 or 2 places on me, your choice, or both. And I was like, I appreciate that offer, but I'd rather meet you first before agreeing to that. Like, I'm not looking for a one night stand. I'm not looking for a booty call. Like, I just want to have engagements. I want to date. I want to meet people. If the vibe is there, we'll have all the fun in the world. But if not, I'm not forcing it. I only flow these days. No more force. And it's really been a beautiful thing. But it's so funny when you think about like how society at a macro level was talking about eating ass for so long. Now everyone wants to go down on you. And I'm like, yeah, millennials are effing lazy. Like Gen X, all about going down. Like Gen Z, all about going down. But millennials can go, either way. And it's funny because one of my friends from like childhood, he and I were talking about, he was married, and he and I were talking about my extracurricular activities many years ago. And I said something about like how I was having trouble getting off and I would like offend these guys. And he was like, I'm surprised they even care. And I was like, me too. But that was, Gen X, they cared. And people also get offended when you say like, you don't want them to go down on you, but it's not personal. It's just like, I just don't want to have every person I've ever met lick me everywhere. Like I just don't. And I think it's an okay thing for us to say as a society. Like it's okay. Like let's keep something sacred. Like it feels like almost more vulnerable than sex, and honestly, and the female sex organs have way more ability to have germs and spread disease than external organs like rhymes with cleanest or leanest. You know what I mean? So, like, what are we doing as a society when we were like offering every single person we've ever met or every person we meet to go down on them? It's just not, it's not sacred to me anymore. But it was really funny because he had asked, what did you do tonight? I was like, I was actually on a date in the city. And he's like, well, why are you on here now? And I was like, it went well. And he's like, well, it can't be going that well if you're on here. And I was like, yeah, we had a make out. And then later on, like when he was asking to just like show up at my apartment at like 4 a.m., he was like, just as soon as you get to the door, I'm going to go down on you. I was like, I already had that offer. The man was literally on top of me. Like, I don't want you to do that. And like, I want to have a vibe with somebody. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's so funny because when you think about dating after divorce, the only way to do it and the only way to date, like, and clear your slate is by having a prolonged level of celibacy or some type of abstinence, whatever you want to call it. Because that's the only way that you could retrain your nervous system. You can't rewire your nervous system while you're trying to also heal yourself and engage with other people and do all these things. And the really cool thing is like now I pause before I speak. I used to just speak. Words would just come out of my mouth. They would be in my brain and come out of my mouth. Or they would be conditioned, right, to always be the peacemaker, be the problem solver, be the diplomat, right? And I'd be like, oh yeah, we'll do this next time, or let's do it next time, or I can't wait to see you next time, or yeah, next time we'll have more fun, to try to like assuage things, right, and make it better. This time I was like, I'm not even going to say that. I was like, thank you. I had a good time. And it was just really empowering to know that I could choose differently over and over and over again. This wasn't a one-time thing. The only thing that sucks now, though, is like I have been making out with a few different people. And even the guy that I broke my celibacy with, while our makeout was the best makeout I've had like in years. I just felt like he really like understood like what I wanted from like a kissing standpoint. Kissing is like so intimate and so beautiful. Like a good makeout is like so good. Like that's all I want sometimes. Like I don't want to do other shit all the time. And it's also like if you think about this as like a recovery, which I don't consider it to be in recovery from anything, right? I'm just healing and I've been managing different stimuli in my life or different attachment wounds. Yeah, it's good to also say no. It's good to not sleep with every person you've ever met. But even that guy, like while our kissing was awesome, was it the best kiss of my whole life? No. Do I hope one day that I have like a magical kiss that's just like the best thing ever? Because what I'm hoping is that this isn't just like what normal kissing feels like without having the attachment wounds, without having the addiction, without having the types of obsession. Like I want to know like what is actual kissing that you feel like connected with someone feel like, because that guy was awesome. Like that was the best possible celibacy thing. But then the other guys that I made out with, oh yeah, and then I made out with this guy on Monday night, the one that helped me with the with the baking powder. And we had such a good connection. But then there was like when we met in person, I was like, I don't know if I feel it. And we made out and like we both weren't feeling that. Like I specifically wasn't feeling it. And I think I offended him. He was a nice dude. Like he was great. And I just didn't feel it either. So I was like, is this what kissing feels like when you don't have an attachment wound? Or like hopefully there'll be someone that I have like a really good connection with and like the kissing is just like so good. Because that's all I want. I want like a really good makeout. Like pretend we're like 14 years old. You know what I mean? I started having sex when I was 15. So say what you will, but this is not new for me. But what is new for me is the ability to have healthy engagements, to not chase, to actually be ready to receive, to speak my truth, to speak in alignment, to not feel obsession, to not feel hopeless, to not wait for somebody to message me to go on with my life. I don't really care. You do what you want to do. But it's a really beautiful thing when you have the ability to heal generational trauma at an actual nervous system foundational lens. And I just feel so grateful. And I hope that you also find ways to heal your own generational trauma and epigenetic trauma and ways to get through each day. And if you need help, all my links are above. I do consulting. I work professionally with people on one-to-one basis and also with organizations. And I just know that there's a better life for everybody. And it's just breaking free from those attachment wounds that are destroying our mind, body, and soul. And we don't even realize it. But when we're able to break free from it, it's like, oh my God. And, you know, maybe I'm a little bit more OCD than I used to be. Do I wipe down my cell phone after being outside everywhere? Like I live outside now with Lysol wipes, like it's the pandemic, 100%. But does that hurt anybody? No. Do I want every person I've ever met to go down on me? Absolutely not. It's just not sanitary. So when we think about how we're engaging with people, also let's think like, do we really want other people touching our sensitive areas that are touching everybody else's sensitive areas? It's my only thing. And like, obviously, probably the answer is no, right? And if the answer is yes, you need to think twice about why that is. But I feel really fortunate and I just I just am grateful that I had this experience, and I'm going to keep you updated on what dating after divorce looks like. Because dating post divorce is totally new for me. Like, I was never actually fully single. I've always been married, or I've been in a sexless marriage, or I was in the middle of getting divorced. So this is my first time like being really single since I was like 22, and it's a whole new world, a whole new world. Yeah, I probably shouldn't be singing that, but it is. It's a whole new world. And when you have the ability to change your actual nervous system, to rewire it for success, to break those generational cycles of dysfunction, to heal yourself at an epigenetic level, and to actually heal some of those attachment wounds, the whole world opens up. And you could even find healthy engagements on those dating apps, which are just full of crazy people. So if you learn anything from me today, is you can change your life if you want to, through the power of the art and science of connection and nervous system literacy for all. So I hope you'll join us for the next episode. Just chill to the next episode. It might be coming sooner than you think. And I hope that you learned something new today. Thank you so much for watching the On Me IRL pod with your host, Lauren Friedman, not another healing asshole. If you want to support the mission and the project and this channel, the quickest way to do that is to hit the subscribe button. Also, if you're so inclined, please like, share, and comment any thoughts in the comments below. I will personally be responding to them. And if any of the products that I showcase or wear or speak about are interesting to you, please don't forget to shop them in the links above, including but not limited to merch with a perp, as well as all of my affiliate products, including Camuso Design, Recess, Routine, Built, as well as Equip, and more. Always adding more each day to better ourselves, because together we rise. From me to On Me IRL. I just want to share some of the brand partners that really help save my sanity, help my nervous system, and just keep me sane and from losing my mind each day. So first is Camuso. Camuso is a breathing tool that helps you regulate your nervous system in real time. And before we dive in, I'd like to do a little breathwork exercise together. So I like to do a 4-4-8 breath. And what you do is you inhale for 4, you hold for 4, and then you exhale slowly for 8. And that is where the magic happens. And that is where your heart rate gets reduced, your blood pressure gets reduced, your sanity comes back, your will to live, and your body literally can get regulated from a state of dysregulation to a state of regulation in real time. So let's do it together. Literally magic. Like you could feel the difference. You can literally feel the shift. That's why it's called the Camuso shift. The next thing is Equip protein bars with 20 grams of grass-fed protein, as well as Built protein bars with 17 to 20 grams of protein as well. That has whey protein in it. Both of those things help you stay regulated. They keep you fuller. They help build amino acids, which keeps your brain from having brain fog. It helps you think clearer, and it just helps you stay saner. The next thing that I'm absolutely obsessed with is morning routine. Morning routine is an electrolyte that is only 3 ingredients. It's literally apple cider vinegar, organic lemon, and sea salt. It's so delicious. And it's literally my favorite way to hydrate. I'm a wateraholic. I carry around a 64-ounce water bottle just for fun. I've been drinking water my whole life, and I stopped drinking a few years ago, which is why I love Recess as well for the sobriety spectrum drinks. But literally all of these things keep us regulated, they keep us hydrated, they keep us sane, they keep us full, and they just keep us from losing our minds. So that's what I'm doing. You can find all the links to buy those products in the links above.